Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a very controversial topic, or, not so controversial, depending on who you're asking. But the topic is cannabis, weed, marijuana, the devil's lettuce. You already know it goes by many different names. But at the end of the day, for many people out there in the audience, especially, those of you guys that are watching this video right now, you guys are interested in knowing what the laws are in Mexico as of April 20th, 2025. Because for some of you guys out there in the audience, might know or might not know, back in 2018, Mexico legalized cannabis. That's right, they legalized it just straight all across the board. We'll get more into that later on in the show. But they legalized it. And so for a lot of people out there, they just search on Google real quick and they see that it's legal. And then obviously the next thing is, that they ask themselves like, all right, where can I go to a dispensary? Where can I legally obtain this? And they quickly find out that there are no dispensaries. There's no legal way to obtain it. There's actually, it's still almost illegal in a sense.
How, Sway? Take a few steps back.
And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, because through the years, I've made videos on this topic, and every few years I've had to delete that video and upload a new one simply because, well, things change. And in this case, from the last time I made one, which was in 2023, it's been over 2 years, and now we have a lot more clarity on everything. Where back when I made that video, things were still not clear. Things were still up in the air, and we still had, only guesstimations as to what the real laws were, how they were being enforced, what the permits were, everything. But as of right now, basically, we have a very, very clear picture of what's permitted, what's not permitted, and what you can do in order to, again, partake in, what you're looking at this video for. Because again, most of you guys are watching this video is because you want to know how you can get your cannabis so you can smoke it legally. All right, so that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. So let's just get down with what the actual law is as of right now. The actual law right now says that for anyone out there in the audience, okay, it doesn't matter if you're here on a tourist permit, on a residency, if you're a Mexican citizen, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are out there, okay? You can legally have up to 5 grams on you at any time, all right? Now, of course, you cannot smoke it in public. You can only smoke it, partake, in the privacy of your own home. The law is the law, and the law says you cannot buy and you cannot sell. Again, anything under 5 grams is 100%, 1000% legal. Nothing to worry about at all. Now, for many recreational users out there, that's not a problem because it's just like a joint or two, just a couple of bowl hits, whatever. For many people out there that don't smoke at all or very little, well, that's it. That's all you need to know. You don't got nothing to worry about. You're probably not going to have more than 5 grams anyway. But for many people out there in the audience, 5 grams might just be one day. All right, or more. You might, you need more than 5 grams a day. I don't know what your situation is out there, but for heavy smokers out there, for regular users out there, well, you got a problem still because legally, as of right now, you cannot have anything over 5 grams unless you obtain a permit from COFEPRIS. All right, now yes, you can obtain a permit from COFEPRIS. Again, you're probably not going to be able to obtain it if you're here on a tourist visa. We're going to explain why in a second. But if you're here as a resident, then yeah, you can definitely obtain one because, again, according to the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court said is that anyone, okay, anyone, it doesn't matter who it is, that is in Mexico is legally protected by their constitution and their laws and all that stuff. So in this case, doesn't matter who you are out there, you're protected by this, meaning that you can ingest whatever you want legally. They cannot do anything about it. There's no way that they can prosecute you for any kind of crime because there is none. So with that said, in order for you to have legally on you more than 5 grams, you need to obtain this permit. Once you get your permit, okay, once you have that permit, okay, then you can legally have basically as much weed as you want within reason. Meaning, if you can prove that the amount of weed that you have is for personal use, then no problem. Look, there's plenty of people out there that smoke like Snoop Dogg. They smoke a lot of weed. They can easily prove that they smoke that much weed. All right. So it's not that big of a deal. All right. But that's basic. And you know how Mexico is. It's very loosey goosey, yada, yada, yada. We're going to keep, going deeper into that as well. But again, with that permit, not only are you allowed to legally have more than 5 grams, but you're allowed to transport it. You're allowed to grow, again, for personal use. And it doesn't say anything about plants at all, meaning how many plants you can grow. There's no limit because it's, again, for personal use. And so they know already very well that each plant produces different amounts, of herbs, of flowers, all right? And all that stuff. Okay, so they get all that. They just again, they keep saying in the law, in the legislation, whatever, that hey, as long as you can legally prove that is for personal consumption, that's it. Look, I'm not going to bore you with all the details, okay? Anywho's, moving on. But since there's been a lot of bureaucracy, the reality is that it's made it very, very difficult for any of this to move forward. But one of the things that moved forward, that had to move forward because it was a Supreme Court ruling and it moved forward no matter what, was the whole thing with the permit. Because, long story short, at the very beginning, when the Supreme Court passed this, they said, in the meantime, while the legislators figure out the laws and figure out how they're going to do this, anyone out there that's going to participate in this, they're going to need to get a special permit from COFEPRIS. All right. And that special permit would allow you to do many things. Again, it would allow you to grow it. It would allow you to create a business around it, buy, sell, everything. Okay. It would allow you to do many things. All right. Obviously to partake in it. But again, that was the original idea. And the whole thing was that what they were trying to do is just, again, this is just, a bridge until you guys figure out the laws. But they never figure out anything because, again, I don't want to get into it, but long story short, there's a lot of people that have a lot of different ideas as to how the laws are going to work out, and nobody's agreeing on anything. Surprise, surprise, right? How government works, everywhere. But long story short, they haven't figured anything out. And not only were things not moving along, but on top of that, that whole permit that that people were now allowed to get. Well, anytime that people were trying to get the permit, they were not, getting approved. Everyone was basically getting denied, and only people with a lot of money and power were eventually able to, after appeal and appeal and appeal, they were able to finally get it approved. Okay, because again, they were just, saying, hey, you cannot deny this, and you cannot deny this appeal because the Supreme Court said this, and that. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And it just go back and forth. Okay. Anyways, that lasted from 2018 to 2021. By the time that 2021 came along, the Supreme Court ruled, okay, the law of the land, that basically said, hey, you cannot do this anymore. All right. You need to approve all of these permits. So anyone that asks for this permit, you need to approve it. If you don't want to deal with this, then what you need to do is you need to come up with laws and regulations, so people can set up their businesses and dispensaries and buy and sell and legally partake, no problem. But since they haven't figured it out, all right, then they cannot deny this anymore. But guess what? They still keep denying it. But now it's only one appeal. So let me explain. So now, whenever you out there are going to go on ahead and get your permit, all right, what you would need to do is that you fill out an application, you go to the government office, you give it to them, and then they process your COFEPRIS, application. All right. Once they process it and they go through the whole, government situation thing, they're gonna basically approve or deny you. All right. And you're gonna have a 95% chance of getting denied. Bruh. But once you get denied, all right, then you go to the appeals court and you appeal. All right. And once you appeal, you win. Okay. Because at this point, like I said, that's what the Supreme Court said, that sure, they might initially get denied, all right, at the office, all right, but once it's taken to court through an appeal, the court cannot deny it anymore. So that's what happens. Okay, most of the time when you go to the office, you fill out the paperwork and you do all the stuff, there, and you're waiting for your answer, you're probably going to get a denial. And once you get denied, then you have to go through the process of going through the courts. All right. And then the courts have to see your application process. And again, now the Supreme Court already said that it's legal. So then they just approve your thing. And then you finally get your paperwork. Okay. Now, what a lot of people want to know are the pricings on this. Okay. Now, look, the initial process of you filling out the paperwork and going to the government office and doing all that, that's free because they cannot charge you for that legally. All right. But again, go on ahead and figure that out, that process. Again, most of you guys, you already know, you pay a facilitator to do XYZ. So there are facilitators out there that can help you with this. Okay. So there are facilitators that you can pay. In fact, there are many cannabis shops out there that sell like CBD products, or, sell very low THC, products, or they sell paraphernalia. They're all over the place, and many of these places offer services to get your permit. There are also lawyers out there, facilitators that, again, well, they've done these, a bunch of times, so they'll be able to do this for you, no problem, for a fee. All right. So meaning that if you don't even want to go to the office and fill it out, you can get this done this way. Okay. Which I think I've seen pricing like 2,000, 3,000 pesos. Okay. So 2,000, 3,000 pesos. All right, for the facilitator to fill out the process and fill out the thing and get it all done. Then when you go to court, okay, to get through the appeal, that could cost anywhere from 8 to 20,000 pesos. Okay. Now, I don't know if some of these facilitators can bring it down, have a lower price. I don't know how the whole business of that works these days. Okay. But long story short, it's going to be, again, around 3,000 pesos, to get your foot in the door, and as high as 20,000 pesos. Okay. So again, anywhere from as low as, $150 to $1,000, okay, to get your permit. All right. But once you get that permit, once you get that coffee breeze permit, you can basically fly with your weed. You can, because you got to have the permit at all times. So you got to have that permit with you always. So if you're driving with your weed, if you're flying with it, if you wherever you're going with it, all right, wherever you much you have. But I've seen videos where there's people that have a lot. They're carrying like an ounce. They're carrying like a vape pen. They're carrying gummies. They're carrying all kinds of things. And again, it's all within reason. This all for his personal use. And they got the permit, and they're able to get on the plane. They're able to travel, or no matter what. No matter what authority figure you encounter, you're fine because you're going to have an official court order. Let me emphasize, okay? If you're out there and you're living in Mexico, okay, you're out there and you're thinking about moving to Mexico, living in Mexico, and making this your home, and you partake in cannabis and cannabis products, then, well, yeah, it's probably going to be very prudent of you to just make sure that you're legal, stegal, and you go on ahead and get your permit. And that's it. It's very simple because, once you're here, you're on your temporary residency, whatever. Well, then again, you just go to any one of these smoke shops or facilitators, whatever, and you again just figure out how to get that permit. Now, it's going to take around 8 to 10 months to get the permit. That's why I said it's not really a good idea for someone that's here on a tourist visa to go through the process because, well, for what? What are you going to get that permit for if you're not going to be here for the allotted time that you need to be here to get your paperwork? But again, anyone out there that's a resident or a citizen of Mexico, well, then, yeah, just get your permit, because once you get your permit, then you're legal stegal no matter what. Again, you just carry your permit wherever you go, that you're taking your medicine with you, and you got nothing to worry about. Okay. Again, as long as you are not, selling it, you don't have a business around it, you're not buying it, as long as you're not smoking in public, and you got nothing to worry about. Now, yes, there are cities, there are states around Mexico that are a lot more loosey goosey with this. Again, in Mexico City, they got parks and they got areas where you can freely, openly smoke it. What is it? Or, partake in it. You know what I'm saying? Like, what to buy, not buy, sell it, but like a trade, whatever. Just get your hands on it. And other cities around Mexico, I've heard, and basically it's just everywhere. It's no problem. In some cities, they're a little bit more conservative, and they're a little bit more strict when it comes to all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the law is the law, and if you got your permit, you got nothing to worry about, no matter where you're at. But again, with that permit, Not only are you allowed to legally have more than 5 grams, but you're allowed to transport it. You're allowed to grow, again, for personal use. And it doesn't say anything about plants at all, meaning how many plants you can grow. There's no limit because it's, again, for personal use. So the reality is that once you get that permit, you got nothing to worry about. But if you don't have that permit, then again, basically how it works is that outside of your home, outside of the privacy of another person's home, outside of the private, walls. Okay, because yes, privacy is protected out here, and the laws and the Constitution still protect you, a citizen. Okay, but anyways, with that said, as long as you are legally partaking in it within your home, you got nothing to worry about. Now, if you're leaving your home, okay, if you're going to be out in public, just make sure that you have under 5 grams. That's it. It's as simple as that. And look, now let's talk about how Mexico works. Okay, look, the reality is that, remember, this has been legal already for 7+ years. Okay, let's not forget that. Okay, number one, the stigma with things like weed, like psychedelics, whatever, which, by the way, psychedelics are also illegal. But again, if you look at the law, it says, well, under certain conditions, the Constitution and cultural things, cultural factors, basically make it legal. So, again, you know what I mean? It's like, it's illegal, I guess, but but it's not, so same thing with weed. So it's like, it's illegal, but it's really not, it's really not. It's like literally not. So it's weird. It's in that gray area still. It's been in the gray area. It's not, going to stop being in that gray area anytime soon. But anyways, as I said, throughout the years, especially with the legalization, okay, things are a lot looser when it comes to all that. So I have, again, I know stories of people, okay, I know friends, all right, that have basically been traveling, and they get searched by the cops. They find an ounce or more, and basically all that happens is it gets confiscated. Sometimes they pay off a few bucks, la mordida, and that's it. They get to keep it. Okay, that's it. Or whatever, or even or keep from getting in trouble. But whatever it is, it's really not that big of a deal. All right, basically, you got more to worry about the fact that the cops smoke, and they're probably just going to take it to smoke it themselves.
Bruh.
Why do I say that? Well, because after living out here for 7 years, I quickly realized, oh wow, the whole smoking, it's everybody smokes out here, just like everybody drinks. Okay, so because every time I go to, since forever, every time we go to parties, we go to whatever, it's very open, and and people just, and again, they partake in this. It's not like as it used to be in the USA, where it was a lot more hidden, and you gotta like people, it was a lot more stigma around it. There's not that much stigma around that out here, and especially now. So again, just to legally protect yourself, and just make sure that you know what you're doing. Okay, again, anything under 5 grams, you got nothing to worry about. If you're at a party and people are smoking, you got nothing to worry about. If you have that in your house, you got nothing to worry about. It's total, again, but legally, what you want to do is that you want to get your permit from Cofipris. So again, if you are here, and you got your temporary, permanent, whatever, then just get your permit. You got no, so that way you really, 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 really have nothing to worry about, and everything is 1000% legal. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about the future of how all this is going to work. Meaning, is there any future prospects that now with Claudia Sheinbaum, the new president, new political party that's very progressive and very liberal, hey, are they going to now all of a sudden finally make this legal? Probably not. And I'm going to tell you why. Look, again, before she got elected, and as she was getting elected, again, she was a woman president, again, very liberal, very progressive, all that stuff, okay? In a very liberal and progressive country, okay, by the way, and it's very conservative. It's always, notice that everything about Mexico is always very polarized, on both sides, one or the other. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So Yes, a lot of people, and she talked about it as well. That yeah, of course, a priority would be, to legalize it finally. Just finally set the laws in place so that they can have some sort of rules and regulations so that people can grow it, they can sell it, they can buy it, manufacture things around it, the hemp industry. So much money, so much money to be made. So of course, very interested. But, as of right now, no, it's not looking like that at all. Again, very recently, again, I did a lot of research. So there was this lady that was in Congress, one of the congressional ladies, and she was like like a Bernie Sanders, I guess, or someone that's really, really pro weed. Okay. So basically, since the Supreme Court ruling, this person has been leading the charge with the legislation, and so basically they got the legislation with all the laws, they got everything. It's ready to go, ready to go. We were this close to making it all legal, but again, bureaucracy and other factors. Don't get me started. I'm basically just delayed it to the point where it got paused and yeah, it's just paused. It's just there. It's just whatever. And then they asked the same lady a couple months ago, okay, a month ago. I saw an interview, okay, they were talking to her and they asked her about that. And she's like, oh, well, as of right now, we don't plan on doing anything at all because this is a very touchy subject. Because now, with President Trump and the whole issue with the drugs and the fentanyl and the da dee da da, wah ba ba beep, we cannot and we don't want to start talking about this and pushing this because blah blah the war on drugs and this. And so everybody's like in the comments of that video, of the interview, everyone's like, bro, okay, so they bought her out. That's it. You know what I mean? So long story short, there's a lot of forces out there, just like in the USA, just like all over the world out there. I don't want to name names, all right? You know who they are. Big Pharma. Anyways, and they're not interested in having this being legal. Okay. And so therefore it's the same thing out here, so out here they don't want it to have legal. There's a lot of forces out there that don't want the legislation, to go through. And because of that, well, it's just going to keep getting delayed and delayed and delayed. So will we see a change in the future? I don't know. Do I hope that there's a change in the future? Yes, of course. I want it. Everyone wants it. Everyone wants it to be legal steagall. But as of now, do you have options? Yes, of course. Again, simply put, if you're out here, on vacation, just relaxing, come on, use your common sense. Many of you guys already know you can find it everywhere. Many of you guys already know it's not that really that big of a deal. But, to really, really legally protect yourself, you already know what to do. All right. Just, keep it on the down low. Again, don't have more than 5 grams, yada, yada, yada. The most insane penalty that's probably going to happen, and again, you're going to get shaken down. They're going to take your weed, they're going to take your money. I'm talking about the cops, and that's about it. Okay, no more than that. Now, of course, if you got, kilos and kilos, pounds and pounds and pounds of weed, then you're talking about something else. Give me a break, okay? But other than that, yeah. Okay. Now, again, if you're living out here and you smoke a lot of weed and you got maybe an ounce or maybe 2 ounces, maybe you make brownies, maybe you got a plant, maybe whatever. Okay. You're a habitual cannabis user. Then just get your permit. Just get your permit. Okay. The law is the law, and the law says you cannot buy and you cannot sell, but you can legally partake. So simply put, yeah, marijuana is legal, cannabis is legal, but there's still tons of restrictions. And as of right now, we're just in the gray area and we're just going to have to live with it until, well, we finally get out of the gray area and they legalize it and we get dispensaries everywhere, just like the USA and Canada. All right. But in the meantime, well, you can legally partake, you can legally consume, you can legally have. It doesn't matter whether you get your license or not. You just, again, depending on who you are out there, will depend on, well, whether you're going to need one or not. So, with all that being said, I really, really, really hope that today's 420 episode, today's special episode was helpful and was able to answer some questions. And hopefully, it wasn't too long and it gave you some more background, some more perspective as to what to expect from here on into the future. And, at the end of the day, look, you'll be able to smoke your herbs, okay? You might not be able to go get it at the store anytime soon, but hey, it is what it is. If you ask me, it's really not that big a deal. And if you ask anyone out here that partakes, again, what's the problem? You know what I mean? It is what it is. Of course, we all want stores, but hey, it's not stopping us from doing our thing. All right. So, All right, guys, you already know the deal. I want to give a big shout out to all my members out there, to all my patrons, to every single one of you guys out there in the audience that has been, supporting the show in, whatever shape, form that you can. Again, especially on videos like this, because these videos get demonetized, all right? Or, if I'm getting, if you see ads or anything like that, those are going straight to YouTube because when talking about subjects like this, they don't like it. But it doesn't matter because I got you guys out there in the audience to help me, support the show through so many other means. Again, whether you're buying a T-shirt from Lambo or whether you're, again, you're liking, you're subscribing, you're sharing this video, you're watching the other videos that are monetized and they got no problems, with, getting the ad money and stuff like that. Because, well, I'm not talking about, controversial topics in those videos. Well, they're not controversial yet. For now, things like freedom are not that controversial, right? So, anyways, you already know the deal, guys. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. And if you really enjoyed this video and this content and you don't know who I am, please check out the rest of the channel and check out the other videos that I have. I've been living out here in Mexico for 7 years and I've been making videos about living out here in Mexico. And you already know the deal, guys. If you like this kind of content, don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit the bell icon. But more importantly than anything else, please stay awesome. And to all of you guys out there that are watching this on 420 when I published it, happy 420. And in this year's edition, happy Easter. So happy Easter to all you heathens out there, and happy 420, and happy Sunday, and happy good vibes to all of you guys out there. All right, so you already know the deal. Smoke them if you got them. Love you guys, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.